Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in with me on this Holy Saturday. On this Holy Saturday, we observe the day Jesus was laid in his tomb after his death on the cross. As we mark this day together, I want to share with you all a reading from the Gospel of John. Today we will be reading from chapter 19, verses 38 through 42. Later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. Now Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, because he feared the Jewish leaders. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. He was accompanied by Nicodemus, the man who earlier had visited Jesus at night. Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds. Taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it, with the spices, in strips of linen. This was in accordance with Jewish burial customs. At the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. Because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. Thanks be to God for his word to us on this Holy Saturday. The text I have just shared with you comes immediately after the account of the crucifixion, which we read through together yesterday on Good Friday. Jesus declared, "It is finished." He bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Even when he was dead, the brutality continued as a soldier pierced Jesus' side with a spear before taking him off of his cross. In our reading today, we are back with the disciples. By this point, they are grieving the loss of their teacher and rabbi. Jesus knew this was all going to happen, and in fact, he knew it needed to happen exactly in this way. But the disciples did not completely understand. They just knew their beloved Jesus, for whom they gave up everything to follow, was now dead. To honor his passing, they wanted to lay his body to rest. And so, this Holy Saturday is like the funeral for Jesus. But it is curious for us to note who is in attendance. First, there is Joseph of Arimathea, about whom we know very little. From what we do know, it would seem he was a rich man and a member of the Jewish High Council. We are told he was only secretly a disciple of Jesus because he feared the Jewish leaders around him. Then there is Nicodemus. You might remember Nicodemus previously coming to Jesus at night to ask questions about the faith. His boldness increases later in the Gospel when he appears to come to Jesus' defense before the Pharisees. Where the other disciples are, we don't know. We can only imagine that they are caught up in their grief and digesting the shock of the events that have taken place over the last week. Nonetheless, here are Joseph and Nicodemus, preparing to honor and bury Jesus. Two men who previously seemed quiet about their faith are now completely unashamed to lead the burial of Jesus. Joseph received permission from Pilate to remove his body, and when permission is granted, they do just that. Nicodemus brought a 75-pound mixture of myrrh and aloes to this burial. He bought and carried 75 pounds worth of spices. In these days, the average person would have been embalmed using only about 10% of that amount, so about 7 or 8 pounds. So the fact that Nicodemus brought 75 pounds is indicative of not only his wealth, but also his devotion and love of Jesus. Joseph and Nicodemus used these spices and strips of linen to wrap Jesus' body in accordance with the Jewish burial customs. They then laid Jesus' body in a tomb in a garden that was near the place he was crucified, because no one had ever been laid there before. In fact, the Gospel of Matthew tells us that this was a tomb Joseph of Arimathea had purchased for himself. But now, it is the resting place for their beloved Jesus. And soon it will be the place where the women discover just how great God is. On this Holy Saturday, we honor Jesus with Joseph and Nicodemus in their meaningful pursuit to lay him to rest. But we also sit in the tension between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. We sit in between the pain Jesus willingly endured on the cross and the glorious celebration that he has risen indeed. The people in Jesus' day also sat in tension on this Holy Saturday. Some remembered Jesus saying he would rise on the third day, but many doubted that that would ever come into fruition. The soldiers did their best to ensure they sealed off Jesus' borrowed tomb so that they could not be fooled. And yet they were fooled, because as we will see tomorrow, on Easter Sunday, God is far more powerful than a massive sealed stone and armored guards. My friends, Christ has lived, died, and been buried. Tomorrow he will rise again. Let us draw close to God this day as we prepare to celebrate this mystery of our faith. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen.